Howdy, howdy, everyone.
Hi.
I hope you're all doing well. Apologies, I haven't really been around this week with like the long forms and as many shorts and stuff. I was quite ill, and as you will see over the period of this live stream, I am still quite ill. But we'll ignore that. I hope you're all doing really well. So I'm going to get straight into the specific person advice that I referenced in the title of this video, just before people start joining and asking questions. Um, when it comes to manifesting a specific person, one thing to remember is that you are adjusting the version that you are seeing. You are looking past what you're seeing to create a new version. So every time they do something that you don't like, every time they speak a certain way, do a certain thing, or you start spiraling about things, anything at all, look past it as best you can. Sit with the feelings if you need to. If you can ignore them, if it's something insignificant, do so. Because what you want to be experiencing is behavior that your desired version would be experiencing, not the version that you are currently. So if you're placing your awareness on that behavior that you don't want, you're going to keep receiving more of what you don't want. So try to think about what kind of behaviors you would want to see and look past what you don't want and place your awareness on that. So that's my little bit of specific person advice for this live stream. So everyone watching this post, I hope it was helpful. And for everyone watching this post and current, if you could like it, that would really help because it gets pushed out to more people and they might ask questions that you didn't know that you needed the answer for. If any of you are in need of one-to-one work with me to get you some movement in your reality, get you some results, check down below. The website linked is there. Katie's YouTube channel's down there. Katie's personalized tarot readings are down there. And with all of that selling myself, I suppose now I'll get into the questions. So I hope you're all having a good day, everyone watching this post. Satyam says, hey, howdy, Satyam. Glad to have you here. Summer Rain says, hey, Matt and Katie. Howdy, Summer Rain. Glad to have you here. Master Uguay says, hey there. Howdy, Master Uguay. Glad to have you here. Satyam says, hey, affirmation for sex with SP. So you could say something like, I am having sex with SP. I've had sex with SP. I'm so grateful to have had sex with SP. It felt amazing when SP and I had sex. Anything like that. What would you say to your friend if they were to ask you, how was your night with SP and you had sex? What would you say to your friend? Now that could be your affirmation. So if my friend was, hey, Matt, how was like night with person? Oh, yeah, we just had sex. Or, oh, yeah, we slept together. Something like that. So almost pretend like someone's asked you how the night went, and then you're giving them a response. H says Matt 90 Matt 90 10 in wish fulfilled, as in like 90% of the time you're in it and then 10% you're not. If so, that's really good results. Obviously, absolutely in the dominant state. So definitely keep at it. I'm glad to hear that you're doing that. And I'm still working on that letting go of resentment worksheet. This one, I'm not struggling, but I'm finding it difficult to make it into more of a worksheet as opposed to here's what you should try to do. I'm trying to sort of mold it so that it gives you stuff that you can write down and really think about it from a worksheet perspective, as opposed to just a file that you read. So that's why it's taken me a little bit longer because I'm trying to actually make it so that you guys can do something with it as opposed to just sitting there reading me talk to you. But so far, the content that I have on it, I think is quite good. Submarine says, so how did you deal with no movement when you was manifesting Katie? Similar to the advice that I just gave a second ago in like the beginning part, when I was manifesting Katie, I knew that anything that was undesired, whether it would have been if she had done something undesired, which she didn't, because I literally completely shut out every element of her until we reconciled. But if she had, for example, if she'd messaged me saying, come get your stuff or whatever, anything like that, any thoughts that I had, all of that weren't in line with my end result, I knew were going to, if I put too much power on them, hold me into where I was at that time. And I didn't want that, obviously. I wanted to be with Katie. I wanted everything to be fine. So no movement was assigning meaning to the idea that we were not together. If I was looking for movement or if I was going, oh, there is no movement, I'm in the wrong state. I'm not thinking from the perspective of the new me who had her. So the way that I dealt with it was every time I noticed it, I would try to catch myself. And obviously, we're all human, so you're not going to catch yourself every single time. But I would try to catch myself and go, is this how I should be thinking? No. What should I be thinking instead? And it's something that implies that we're together. I use the I remember when technique quite a lot for this. So I would say something like, I remember when there was no movement, but now we're together and everything's amazing. Or I remember when we were broken up, but now we're together and everything's amazing. And that just helped me take myself out of all this undesirability and place myself into what I wanted. I don't find that there's um, like a magic trick to deal with it, so to speak. It is just the discipline to go, I'm not thinking correctly. Let me do this. And you can use techniques to like obviously help you do that, which is what I did with the I remember when. But it is more because it's mindset stuff. I do find that it is more just the discipline to catch yourself when you need to that really makes the difference. Uh, Navneet Bali, apologies if I said that wrong, says, "Hey Matt, can we manifest while being anxious and being desperate?" So you can, but you also are going to have quite a bit of a trouble. So the reason why I say that you can is because if you are feeding yourself this new story enough, you will eventually experience that reality. Now, the reason why you would need to be doing that a lot. Like if you're anxious and desperate, chances are you're in the wrong state quite a lot of the time. So you would need to really, really be barreling in these affirmations or these scripts or something to sort of override it. Because, like I said, it's your dominant state that manifests. So you can be anxious 40% of the time, but then happy the other 60% or in the right state the other 60%. And that's still your dominant state. But if you are very anxious and desperate, you're going to really need to be constantly barreling affirmations and stuff like that. And that's going to be quite a difficult journey, which is one of the reasons why I say probably not. Because while it is possible, because you can be dominantly in a good state while still being quite severely in a negative state, the chances of you managing to overpower all of that anxiety and desperation with just sheer willpower is probably quite low. And therefore, you're going to have a very difficult journey. You're probably going to be quite mentally exhausted. And unfortunately, once you get your desire, if you let your old self concept problems come in, you're probably going to end up having troubles with the desire because all of that old story that you've kind of ignored, which is why you're so desperate and anxious while trying to manifest this thing in, all of that's going to sort of come back up and then you're going to have those issues going forward. So, yes, it's possible. Do I advise that you try to go with that route and try to just barrel past it? No, I would advise that you try to work on that anxiety and desperation because let's say that you're having 400 desperate thoughts, you need to be having at least 401 positive ones, which is obviously quite a lot. You know, that's a lot of like mental exhaustion to go, oh, I'm thinking all this negativity like about this much, and now I need to also try and force positivity to this degree. Whereas if you work on that anxiety and desperation and everything, if you only have four negative thoughts, then you only have to have five positive thoughts, for example, which makes it a lot easier for you to kind of control how much you're in that positive state. So I would definitely recommend you try to get out of that state. But yes, it is possible to do so, but not probable is basically what I'm going to say with that.
I was just going to add something to that. So, one thing that I have very recently learned myself, because I for years have suffered with like quite high anxiety and like struggled with just continuously feeling anxious. And one thing that was pointed out to me recently in therapy is that anxiety isn't actually there. So that sounds a bit bad because anxiety, I know what it feels like. It's there. But what anxiety tends to be is that you're basically permanently putting yourself in the flight or fight sort of response mode. So anxiety is normally just caused by like the part of your brain that is responsible for keeping you safe. So you have like the almost like primal part of your brain that is out there searching for what's wrong and getting you ready to either fight it or run away or freeze and panic sort of thing. And so what anxiety is normally isn't actually anything going on around you. And it's really important to like ground yourself when you're feeling really, really anxious, because what you'll tend to find is anxiety is just you searching for something that's not there. So if you are really struggling with like sort of high levels of anxiety, just like spending a lot of time grounding yourself, like sipping a drink, smelling something, touching the floor, knocking on something, like those kind of like exercises, they seem a little bit weird, but like quite often I will just like tap things and stuff. And it's literally just to remind myself that I'm here in this moment and actually right here, right now, there is no threat. Therefore, in a way, I can sort of lower my anxiety that way and not feel that intense sort of like fear that something bad is just about to like burst through the window or something, you know, because the majority of the time the anxiety is literally just caused by your own brain trying to find the fault when there's not one. It's mostly based on past experiences and trauma. So yeah, that little sort of primal part of your brain that recognizes when there are threats and stuff, it's always a little bit higher when you've gone through horrible things, because your brain needs to be able to protect you next time, sort of thing. So yeah, if you find I think that once you work on the anxiety and just grounding yourself all the time, the desperation kind of side would also disappear with it, because anxiety itself causes panics, and the panics is what makes you desperate. That's what makes you go, I need this, I need that, I need to sort this, I need to fix that. It's because the anxiety, which is often caused by nothing around you and something just either that happened in the past or something that could possibly happen, um, and then that transfers into panic, which then transfers into desperation. I feel like getting rid of the anxiety would give you a better time.
Yeah, like I always say, the sadness, depression come from living in the past. Anxiety and fear come from living in the future. Mr. The Almighty One says, "Hi Matt, hi Katie. How do you get your SP to conform when there are circumstances don't allow it? If they did, she would lose her home. If she came forward to be with me, she works 7 days per week to survive." So, in this kind of instance, as we know, circumstances don't matter. And as we know, our thoughts and assumptions create. So, it's not about how you're going to get her to conform, it's about you dropping that assumption. So, you're saying her circumstances don't allow it. And by having that assumption, you're allowing her circumstance to disallow you to have your reality. You are giving you're giving basically her circumstances all the power um, to stop you from getting what it is that you want. If you live in an end result where she's with you and you guys are in just a happy relationship, that must imply to some degree that not only are you together, obviously, but if you're in a happy relationship and everything's fine, whether or not she works 7 days a week, she still managed to find her way to you in a way that benefits everyone involved, because she can't be in a relationship with you and be happy without some sort of well, no, she can do it while still working 7 days a week, obviously, but this would imply that even if there was a change in her circumstance, it at least benefits her, because what you say there was if she did, she'd lose her home. So you're saying she can't be with me because of this negative thing, and you're putting these constraints on it and then giving your power to an external source instead of saying, I have this assumption that this is the case, how can I remove it? You're saying this is simply the outer world that I need to have her conform despite this. You're assuming it to be an obstacle, and obviously obstacles don't actually exist. They're just things that we place in the way. So if you want her to conform, or if you want the reality to conform to what it is that you want, you need to change your awareness to be that of you and her being in a loving, passionate, committed relationship. Everything's fine, everything's happy, you guys are doing as amazing as you could possibly do, and let that be your only concern. Because if you start thinking she's going to lose her job if she ends up being in a relationship with me, you're literally putting that as a limitation for your reality. As scripture said, God makes a way when there isn't a way. When you pray, believe that you received it and you shall, all those kind of things. None of them ever say, you got to deal with this circumstance and then I might give it to you. They all just say, dwell in the end result and let God do the rest of it. And obviously by God, it's subconscious mind in this instance. So it's your assumption that's holding that in place. Try to change where your awareness is going. Sorry, I knocked my laptop. Try and change where your awareness is going, and the reality that you are experiencing will shift alongside it. Satyam says, "Hey, if I affirm that person love me, what would he think that will happen to him?" So if you're affirming that he loves you, there'll be things kind of that lead up to that. Like it could be that I don't know if you're implying that they know you or not. So let's just go with let's go with both. Let's go with an example where they do or where they don't. If you're saying person loves me and you know each other, they could start having thoughts about you. They could start like really thinking about you in a certain light. They could be thinking like, oh, actually, this person's quite, they're quite nice. I quite like them. And then over time, you start to become on their mind more and more, and then to the point where they start to love you. If it's someone that you don't know, then think a bridge of incidents will happen where you end up like somehow meeting or getting in some form of contact, or they end up finding out about you. And then over time, same sort of thing. They'll start to have more thoughts about you, more feelings about you. And overall, over time, it'll build up. It will what would he think that will happen to him? So it will basically be things. The thoughts that will come will end up leading in alignment to getting to that point of them loving you. Obviously, it depends on the circumstance. It does. Every situation will be different. Not that that means that any situation is harder than another, but what they think will be probably be variant depending on the situation that you're in. If that makes sense. Like if you don't know each other, they're not going to randomly just go, "Oh, I love this person." It's probably going to be it will be a bridge of incidents that lead them to that, instead of just going, "Ah, boom, this person I've never met and I've never even heard of before. Now all of a sudden I love them," if that makes sense. Master Ugo says, "I took your advice from the last time and I've been going really good. And I'm also at a very good position with myself and growing significantly and have no doubt that the universe supports me. I'm very," oh, and you said some more. And I always get what I want, and I've actually fucking acting it and having no disbeliefs at all. But however, my friends keep telling me she's with someone else. I don't ever let it get to me, but it gets hard. Is there some special thing you can advise? Well, first off, you're doing really well. I think it's really good to hear that you took my advice and are now definitely in a better space. Um, I quite often say to people that if there's people in their reality saying things that if there's something in your reality that you don't want to experience and you can control it, as in, for example, uh, in this instance, you could say to your friends this year, I just don't want to hear it. Stop talking to me about it. That could obviously be something you could do. If there's ever anything in your reality that you can control, or if you can stop it, like a lot of people say, oh, I can't stop checking your social medias. Yes, you can. Just mute their account and you'll be able to stop doing it, and that'll stop spirals. So if you're ever in a situation where you can stop something, I advise that you do if it's going to cause you to spiral. In this instance, um, let me just read that last part. You said, however, my friends keep telling me she's with someone else. I don't ever let it get to me, but it gets hard. Is there some special thing you can advise? So if they do choose to speak to you even after you've said to them, look, you don't want to hear it. I think that what you've been doing, you said, don't let it get to me. That's obviously a very good start, is to try and look past it, and as something that doesn't affect you. If you do find yourself actually getting like caught in it, and it makes sense if someone's going to keep repeating that stuff to you over and over again, then it makes sense. But if you find yourself in a situation where you do feel a little bit triggered by it or a little bit emotional about it, just sit with those feelings for a minute. You know, you're doing amazing, as you sort of said in the first paragraph, everything's doing a lot better. You know, the universe supports you. So just sit with it to let it out. If you're going to like actually feel something in regards to it, then your best bet is to to feel it through so that you can move on instead of trying to ignoring it and let it build. I only advise to ignore stuff if they are genuinely something that you can ignore without it having any kinds of effects. So that I know it probably doesn't sound like the best of advice, but it is actually very good advice. The special thing is to sit with it, to feel those emotions through. Once you have and you know that you're done letting them out, then you can go back to like all of the things that make you feel great. Because if you sit with it for too long and you start to dwell on it to the point where you're just fueling that ego mind, then obviously you're just going to be doing negative damage. But if you sit with it to help you, taking one step back to move two forward is definitely a lot more effective than staying where you are because you're letting it get to you too much. So sit with it, feel it through, let it go. H says revising particular event. Oh, have I missed something? Oh, sorry. I think we missed H earlier. Apologies. So H earlier said revision helped me. I used to think it as nonsense, and then H now has just said revising particular events again and again. Gosh, resentment goes away like air. So yeah, I think revision is very good if you're able to actually revise. I know that a lot of people have come to me and they've said that they struggle to revise because when they're trying to get rid of this old story, they just find themselves thinking about the old story anyway, even though they're trying to create this new one. So I think revision is quite good because it's just changing events that your mind perceives to have experienced. And obviously, if you don't believe them to have experienced, then you'll have a different outcome from it. So I think the fact that you're revising particular events again and again, and then the resentment's going away, then that's obviously a very good sign that you're revising effectively. So congrats for that, because I know a fair few people do struggle with revision. Abinaya says, hey, hey, cuties. Howdy, howdy, Abinaya. Glad to have you here. Carolina says, hello.
Hello.
Oh, I can't speak. Howdy, howdy, Carolina. Uh, YouTube jumped. Apologies. Now I've got to go find where it was. Abinaya says, feeling a bit down today. Why is that? What's wrong? Talk to us.
What's that, duck?
Carolina says, everyone like with 3 hearts. Yeah, if you could like, it really helps push this video out. And like I said, people might ask questions that you didn't know you needed the answer for. And then boom, absolute game changer for you. Satyam says, if I affirm I had sex with a person and a person is a stranger, what will happen to him? What will he think? What will happen that makes me have sex with a person? And like I said, a bridge of incidents will end up ensuing to lead them to a point. So if there's someone that you know, more than likely the events will end up being that they'll think about you. But like I said, if it's someone that you don't know, so I'm assuming that is the person in this case. Yeah, you said stranger. So in this, you said stranger. So I'm assuming by stranger, you mean they don't know you at all. What will end up happening is they will start having thoughts that will lead them down the path to end up meeting you, for example. So it might not be thoughts about like, oh, I really like Satyam, I'm going to have sex with him, because it's not likely to fit with the 3D circumstances you have in place. But to get you down that, they might end up thinking like, oh, you know what? I really want to go and meet someone, for example. And then they go out and they go to a bar that you go to. This is just an example. I don't know if any of this actually fits with what you do on a day-to-day basis. And then that's where you bump into each other. And then that's when you get talking. And then if you continue to affirm it, that's then when they'll start thinking about you more. And then that's when it'll all lead you to where you are. So if you don't know each other at all, I think the kind of like thought transmission stuff that a lot of coaches talk about is kind of somewhat in line with your reality situation. So um if you haven't created that link with this person, if they're not aware of you, and if you're like not really aware of them, for example, then you end up having experiences and thoughts to lead you to the same place to then connect. And then from there, that's when they'll start thinking about you and such more. That's just my sort of perception of it. I know some coaches will say that everyone is linked in every way. So even if they don't know you, you can start saying like they think of me and then they do. If you choose to believe that, absolutely believe that. It's entirely up to you. I think the thing to remember is regardless of what you're affirming and what they're thinking, the thing to remember is your end result and not the middle. Because obviously, thinking like, I'm affirming that I had sex with a stranger and then trying to wonder what they're going to think for obviously curiosity purposes is fine. But if you sit there thinking, oh, I wonder if this stranger's going to think about me, you're constantly reminding yourself that they are a stranger anyway, which is kind of like brings diminishing results, um, diminishing returns, apologies. So I always advise to just go straight to the end result anyway. Just continue to affirm that you have had sex with them if that's what it is that you want, and let that happen instead of worrying about like what they're thinking, how they're going to get there, what's going to happen. If it's just for educational purposes and you're just curious, then obviously by all means ask away. But I think that's kind of like what I would recommend. Carolina says, my mind is most dominant in the I have this and I'm so grateful, but every now and again, my mind will go back to this is going to happen. I know it. Does it mean my mind isn't saturated enough in it? It's done. I think it doesn't, it's very difficult without being in your mind to sort of know what your thought process is and how much you actually are in the state and how much you aren't. So I think the thing to do in this kind of instance, Carolina, is to sit there and actually think about what it is that you feel. So overall, and obviously you said that you're dominant in the I have this and I'm so grateful. But when these thoughts come back to the, I'm assuming you meant to say this isn't going to happen and not this is going to happen. Uh, Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense. And again, my mind will go back to this is going to happen. Oh, unless you mean, oh, I see. Sorry, no, I've misread that. So you're saying most of the time you're in the state of I have this, and then the other side you're saying it's going to happen. Uh, I think in those kind of instances, it's more just you're thinking with your logical mind. Your logical mind kind of looks at it like, well, if it's not here, but I can believe that it's going to happen. You could argue that yes, there would be an element of still needing to be saturated because it's not fully in that state of being convinced. But I never think that we can fully convince our logical conscious mind anyway, because that's the reasoning side that will look at the experience out in front of you and say, oh, it's not here. So I think obviously, regardless of whether it's saturated or not, I think you're doing a good job based on what you say. You're dominant in the I have this, and to continue persisting in that it's done. Similar to what I said a second ago, and similar to what I said at the beginning. Uh, Wondering whether or not this means the right thing, so to speak, is obviously you sitting in the assumption that you don't have it. So I would say that it would probably be better for you to not worry about if you're not saturating it enough and to just continue to like dwell in that end result and having it come to you anyway. Because when you're worrying, is this enough? You're sitting in a state of not having, if that makes sense. I think saying I'm going to is fine as well, as long as it's not what you're dominantly saying, because you're, like you said, you're dominantly in the I have this, which is the best state to be. So if you're dominantly in that, even if you're negative in the other senses, supposedly, assuming you are actually dominant, which is obviously, like I said earlier, I'm not inside your brain, so I don't know that for sure. But assuming what you said of I'm in this dominant state, even if you were thinking I don't have this the rest of the time, you're still in that dominant state anyway, which means that you're fine. So I would continue to just go ahead saturating it like you normally would and not particularly worry about whether or not it means that you're not doing the right thing. Does that make sense? Mr. The Almighty One says, just thought I'd say I am the friend of Mr. The Almighty One says, just thought I'd say I am the friend of Mr. The Almighty One, so I'm using his YouTube to comment. Okay, howdy, howdy, friend of Mr. The Almighty One. Um, Glad to have you here. John M says, "Hey, have either of you guys read any Wayne Dyer books? I'm reading his Wish Fulfilled, Mastering the Art of Manifesting, and it's clarifying a lot of details I didn't get before. I have never read it, but I might add it to the list if it makes that much of a difference for you. So, yeah, thank you for the posting that. So I'll have a little look-sees after this. And for anyone else that's interested, maybe you might get the same results from that book as John M. So I would recommend you maybe go and check it out too. Carolina says, I'm trying to focus on the Abraham Hicks emotional scale to see where I'm at, and I'm trying to consciously have the good feeling and aligned thought that I'm mostly there, but for some parts of the day, I still feel anxious. How do you know when you're out of the end state too much? If it's just sometimes feeling the anxiety, not all day, every day, just moments of it. Well, we are human, so you are going to feel anxious at times. You are going to feel fearful, or you are going to feel sad, or you are going to feel low on some occasions. Everyone is. And it's perfectly normal. So sort of similar to what I said to your comment a second ago, about like the dominant state is if you feel like you are in a better heightened state and the end result is what's in your mind predominantly, worrying about the rest of the time isn't really your focus, or it shouldn't really be your concern. Similar to what scripture says, where it says, let the weak man say, I am strong, that I am weak. Now, is obviously referencing the idea of saying I'm strong and not saying I'm not weak, because when you're saying I'm not weak, you're focusing on the wrong thing. It's a very similar situation here. So you're wondering if the negatives that you are having is going to cause a problem for your positive, which is placing focus on the fact that there is negatives in the first place. Instead of wondering about is the negative doing bad, you should be wondering, you should be focusing more so on am I doing the right positive? Now, the reason being is you want to have more of what you actually want as your focus. So if you're sitting there wondering about the negative, you've got the negative as your predominant focus, which is obviously going to keep you thinking back to that negative. Whereas even if you're saying, am I doing enough of the good work? At least you're still focusing on the idea of that good work. You're still focusing on the, am I thinking about my end result enough? And then you're thinking about the end result as opposed to the lack of it. So again, like I said earlier, I'm not in your head, so I don't fully know the actual percentages or the dominant states and non-dominant states. So I can't really answer um, if the amount that you're doing it when you say not all day, just moments of it, is fine, because I don't know how much of your just moments of it actually is. But what I will say is, if you're focusing on being in the right state as your main focus, as opposed to not being in the wrong state, you'll still be fine continuing to persist in that, because that's where your focus should go. Focus on what you want, not the lack of what you don't want. If that makes sense. Summer Rain says, you were talking about self-concept a day or two ago. Isn't it self-concept that manifests? You are the one, sorry, I apologize, I'll say that again. Summer Rain says, you were talking about self-concept day or two ago. Isn't it self-concept that manifests? You are who you think you are, as Neville, I am. So if you're referencing I was talking about self-concept a day or two ago, if you're talking about the video I did with Joey, so Joey and I have sort of slightly conflicting views on that. I didn't really bring up mine in the video just because it was more like his side of it. I think that self-concept is your conception of yourself. So it'll be everything that you're involved in, whether it's how you think about yourself, how you think about your desire, how you think about the people involved in your desires, all of that kind of stuff. And I do think that your self concept is more so your assumptions of your concept of self. So I do think that it is your self concept that manifests when you're not paying conscious attention. So this is where Joey and I differed, if that is what the video that you're referencing, because Joey thinks that it's not self concept that manifests and it's instead a higher like source, which I get where he's coming from. If he meant like it's not the self concept itself, it's your subconscious mind using your self concept, then we're on the same page. But if he meant it's like not self concept at all, but it's like awareness and such, I think that when you're not consciously placing your awareness on things, your self concept will dictate what your awareness is naturally placed on. So I do think that your self concept is what manifests. And then if you're consciously affirming something that kind of goes against your self concept, if you're really in that dominant state of that, then that will manifest over self concept because you're placing that conscious awareness. Um, for example, let's say that I feel very desperate for a specific person. That would be my self concept because I have a low self concept, which is why I'm desperate for them. If I'm sitting there saying, I'm in a relationship, I'm in a relationship, I'm in a relationship, and I'm really focusing on that more than my desperations, then I will get that because that's where my focus is going. But as soon as I stop thinking about like being in this relationship and affirming and putting all my focus on it, my natural self concept, my natural assumptions that I kind of just abide by when I'm not consciously thinking, oh, that's the wrong thought, let me change it. those will take over, and that's where self-concept will then kick back in, and that's why people tend to get hot and cold behavior or lose their people once they get them in the first place, because they're changing their awareness about a specific desire to match what they want, as opposed to their self-concept, which is their overarching views and concept of self, to be in alignment with what they want. Hope that makes sense. And a little mini example just to clarify that, that would be something like, I'm actually worthy of being in this loving and passionate committed relationship. I'm calm and confident enough to be in this relationship. And all of these things would imply that confidence and that self-worth and all of these things are built up. So when that relationship comes in and you take your foot off of the conscious, I'm in this relationship pedal, you already have built up that, well, of course I'm worthy for this. Of course they're going to love me. Of course we have all of these amazing things because I'm worthy of all of this. And then that's why when you step back, you're not as desperate and therefore won't lose it. So hopefully that answers your question. As for like Neville stuff, I was never a huge Neville fan. Not in a sense of like I didn't agree with what he said. I just learned my stuff from a lot of like other people, such as Florence Scoble and people, Joseph Murphy and such. So when people reference Neville, I actually don't know too much of his works. So I can't really reference the "as Neville I am" section you put at the end of that, because I learned my stuff from other people and I kind of revert back to them if I ever need a little bit of like a pick me up. Navneet Bali says, thanks, you're always a help. You guys are the best. You are very welcome, and thank you for the kind words, Navneet. And again, apologies if I said your name wrong. Victory3002 Play says, hi, I've got my math exam, calculus, integrals, and matrices tomorrow. I hope I'll pass it with the best grade possible. You will pass it. Stop hoping. You're the operant power. Start telling yourself that you have. I've been practicing the integrals and some of the other aspects of the exam. Well, oh, you said it got more. Okay, that one's kind of different than the next section, so I'll get to that in a sec. So yeah, to start off with, you have passed it. Stop telling yourself that you hope you will, because that's not having that trust in yourself. Like I literally just spoke to Summer Rain about with the self-concept. You have done this. You've passed it. You're the smartest person you know. The exam scores was the exam was easy. You've got the scores you wanted. Tell yourself all these things instead of hoping. I wish you all the best with your exam, and you'll have to let us know in the next stream, or when you know the results in the stream following that, how it goes. And I think it's good that you've also been sort of practicing and getting that knowledge in as well, because you can obviously affirm, but because it's your natural assumptions, being able to sit there and say, like, I've passed my exam, I've passed my exam, I've passed my exam is one thing, but also learning so that you have the natural assumptions of, oh, now that I know more, I'm going to pass it easier. It just aids you, you know? So I'm glad that you've been doing that as well. And I wish you all the luck. Carolina says, Katie, so you didn't know about LOA when you and Matt were apart. How was your way of feeling better during your time apart? Did you feel anxious a lot?
Okay, yeah, so I did not know about LOA. And how did I make myself feel better? So I have like just things that feel nice and things that I like to do and stuff. And so basically, like, have a nice bath, relax a little bit. But if I'm being perfectly honest, pretty much the only thing I did was just spiral and cry. So yeah, yeah, I tried the things like to make myself feel better and stuff, like having a bath, lighting some candles, trying to relax, watching TV, but nearly everything on TV has like some kind of love story in it. So, you know, it was like, but
apologies.
No worries. But yeah, so did I feel anxious a lot? So no, I actually didn't feel very anxious. Or did I? I guess to some extent, yeah, I did, but it was more sadness than anything else, and like guilt, and like a lot of basically just all of the negative feelings. There wasn't really much anxiety. I guess like some points I was worried about what he was doing and stuff like that, but like overall I was just very, very sad. I think he's gone away to cough really loudly. But yeah, so I tried like the sort of like standard like calming techniques and stuff, and like I find it really difficult to cook for myself, so like I ordered takeaways and things like that. But yeah, like I only like to cook when it's like for us kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? I like to cook for someone else. So yeah, I sort of just sat at home and wallowed in self-pity and sadness.
For the record as well, before I move on to the next question, is this happened quite a while ago. So for all of the advice that she gives you guys now is all based on what she's learned since then. So if you're ever wondering like, oh, how could she sit here and say this is how you deal with it when she dealt with it like shit when they were broken up? That's why, because she's learned to grow since then.
Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
was like back when before obviously Katie knew about all of this, before she started applying it to her own life and building up herself in this regard. So if you're ever wondering how she can sit there and say, "Oh, I did all of these bad things," and then I come and give you guys like advice on how to deal with anxiety. That's why, because she's grown as a person. So, not that I don't think.
I think as well, like mostly then, what I was thinking of was like those sort of first few moments, those first few days, and like, do you know what I mean? Like that proper like impact moment. That's what I did in the impact moment. Because yeah, I had no idea about LOA or anything like that. Obviously, after a while, I started to feel that pull of like needing to communicate with him in some way, and that was a massive struggle to try and like fight with myself, because I was kind of arguing between the idea that I was set on the decisions I had made, and like the other half of me was like, I made the worst mistake ever. So it was really like difficult, really, and a lot of like toing and froing kind of in my brain and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely in those first like moments of like just bam, it's just happened, like spiral and cry.
Yeah, because I'm worth it. Carolina also says, whenever I get movement, I still find myself getting a bit nervous, but also excited. So I'm not sure if I actually am living in the end, if I still have those butterflies come up. Well, I think it depends on what kind of butterflies you have, because if you're referencing the butterflies you get when someone, like you first meet someone, that's definitely not a bad thing. You know, like most people will look for that in someone. If they don't feel those butterflies, then they feel like this person isn't for them. So if it's kind of like that lovey-dovey butterflies of like, oh, they're coming back, then I think that's fine and that's good. If it's butterflies and nervousness in a negative sense, like, oh, I feel really nervous about could this go wrong? What if like I say something wrong and they leave or something like that? If it is that, then maybe I would sort of say try and have a look and work on that. Obviously, you're the only person that lives in your head, so you'll know better whether or not it's the good kind, like, oh, you know, this is going where I want it, or whether it's the bad kind of like, oh, what if I open my mouth and say the wrong thing and he'll leave again? Have a little look deeper into it and then kind of see what you feel from there, and you'll be able to better understand whether you are living in the end enough or not. Victory 3002 Play says, hi, since the last stream, I've done some scripting with perfect grade, uni life, relationships, friends, etc. I believe that it's already mine, but I don't have to believe that every time. So you don't have to believe anything that you are telling yourself. You just have to continue to persist in telling yourself. For example, I didn't believe that I was going to get, sorry, like I said, I still a bit ill. I didn't believe that I was going to get the job that I kept manifesting for. And after being rejected by them twice, I obviously persisted and then got it on the third time. It's just all about feeding yourself this new story until you end up getting it. 1 second. Apologies, people. So yeah, you don't have to believe it. You just have to continue to persist in it. You know, your assumptions. I mean, for example, when you're if you're I know this isn't in relation to what you said, but I think this is something that everyone will be able to take some understanding from. When you've been broken up with, and if you're manifesting a specific person back, when you were together, you probably didn't believe that they were actually going to leave. You had thoughts about them leaving, you were worried about it, but you were probably like, oh no, we're in a relationship, this isn't going to lead to this. And then the consistency of telling yourself that this is going to happen is what made it happen. It's the vice versa. Just because you don't believe that it's going to happen doesn't mean that if you don't continue to tell yourself that it has happened, it won't happen, if that makes sense. So just continue to persist in it and it will happen. Fandom Geek says, I'm catching you rather early. Oh, there was one thing. I'm catching you rather early today, lol. Usually I would be asleep, but hey, I'm here. Well, I'm glad to have you here, Fandom Geek. It is nice to see the regulars as always. And again, I'm sorry. It's like a dry, sort of tickly feeling. It's horrible. Satyam says, hey, oh shit, it jumped. Let me find where I was. Oh god, we got a lot of questions today as well. I am so far behind. Oh shit. I'm so far behind. Satyam says, "Hey, I have a very weird personality, but girls love it. I am very aggressive man, naturally, and a person who have a high sex drive, and I think I'm very smart, but I don't know. I don't. I'm saying. I'm assuming that's. I don't know. Not. I don't know. I don't know what DEW is. But girls think they can fix me. But I don't want to hurt them. I know they cannot fix me to help me. So I didn't really come with a question. So I'm just going to say, just keep doing you and you'll find, and things will come to you to match that. If you want a specific kind of person, and I suppose match yourself to be what that person would want, I guess, if you really want to have that, or like tell yourself that that is your person now kind of thing. And by match yourself to be with that, I don't mean necessarily change yourself, but maybe change your thinking. So instead of thinking they won't want me because I'm aggressive or because I've got a weird personality or something, as you said there, instead thinking that because of this, your ideal dream person is going to want you, but it didn't really come with a question, so I don't really know what to suggest for that. Fandom Geek says, how would you provide some tips on manifesting knowledge? I feel it's a bit weirder since manifestation is a mind shift, but having knowledge also being in the mind, it just feels weirder since you know what you know and it's hard to ignore you don't know it. So if you were to manifest knowledge, just simply claim yourself to know what it is that you need to know, and you'll find yourself got down a bridge of incidents to end up learning that. So you might end up hearing it on a podcast, or a YouTube video might say about it and you end up listening to it, or you might end up having a conversation and someone tells you about it. A lot of the time, uh, in a lot of instances, things come to you in a way that works, like you if I don't know, I know of like Einstein's theory of relativity. I don't know the fucking numbers to it, for example. And if I was to sit here saying, "Oh, I know Einstein's theory of relativity," uh, I'm not going to wake up tomorrow with just like boom, all of a sudden I know every single thing and I can picture in my head the blackboard that he wrote on and all that kind of stuff. I would probably end up finding myself down a bridge of incidents that gets me a book, for example, and then I start reading it and then I learn that way. So when it comes to manifesting knowledge, it's literally just you'll find yourself down a path to end up finding out that knowledge, and that would be your story basically. As for tips, it would be the same as anything. So just continuing to tell yourself that you know about it, or that you have a full understanding of something, or you're proficient and fluent in what it is that you want to know. Summer Rain says, what do you think of this universe things and alignment? Isn't it in you? I'm confused by all of this different teachings. I don't think it's outside of you. So universe is just another word for subconscious mind. God, universe, infinite intelligence, infinite supply, subconscious mind, all of that kind of stuff. They're all just referencing the same thing, the power that creates, which is within you. You create the reality and you basically dictate that power source. Think of it like within you, you have infinite electricity, for example. Just because I got electricity here doesn't mean that light bulb up there is going to turn on. I need to flick the switch. Well, electricity here and flicking a switch isn't going to make a difference. But you know what I mean? Like, let's say, for example, I have the electricity here and a cable that leads up to that. It's not going to turn it on until I flick that switch to get it to turn on. And this source is within me. So think of it like that. It's you've got an infinite power source within inside you. You direct how you utilize that source, doing all of these techniques and such. And that's why it isn't outside of you, because you change your awareness. And as a result, you're changing where you're directing that power source and then creating the reality that you want. As for alignment, the alignment that I reference in all of my videos is the alignment of your inner self. So I am aligning that inner power source with the reality of what I want, and that's how it is directed to get me there. I don't believe in alignment as in I tell the universe I want something, and then the universe goes, well, you got to wait sort of 10 days and wait for Saturn over there to end up over there and all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden it's like, now you can have it. By alignment, the stuff that I talk about is aligning your inner self with the version of yourself that would have your desired reality. And that dictates where that power source within inside you, the universe, God, subconscious mind, whatever you want to refer to it as, that dictates where that goes. And that's why nothing is outside of you. Hopefully that answered your question. I have a lot of comments to get behind. So for now, if we can just stop with the questions, just so I can catch up, because there was a whole bunch that I've missed. Well, not missed, but like that I got to get through. Carolina says, what in your opinion is the biggest reason some people aren't able to get their manifestation? Is it lack of focus or the aspect of not being able to let go? I think definitely the not being able to let go. And I suppose in a way that would also contribute to lack of focus. I think what tends to happen is person wants desire. Desire is a very big thing for person, more than likely because of their sort of low self-concept in regards to that thing. Um, and then because they need it so desperately, whether it's money, a person, whatever, they become very attached to this thing. They need it desperately. They're like, I need this money so that I can pay off all of these debts that I'm drowning in. I need this person so I can finally feel loved and validated. I need this thing to, insert reason. And because of that, they then become heavily attached to this and struggle to let go and relax, because they're like, but what if I take a step back and I never get it? I never get that validation. I never get out of debt. I never do, again, insert reason. So I think what people struggle with the most is to let go and allow it to happen. Like I said, you direct that power source within you by flicking the switch. If you start like cutting the wire along the fucking way, it's not going to direct up to that light bulb to bring you that reality, is it? So that's why I think it's letting go and just flipping the switch, directing that source and letting it happen is much more effective than constantly like cutting it up by going, where is it? Why is it not here? Oh, I'm attached to it. Because attachment, desperation is literally saying, I don't have said thing. And if you're saying, I don't have said thing, then that's where you're directing that power source toward. So I think, yeah, letting go and as a result, focus is the same thing, because you can still sort of need it and be attached to it. But if you're noticing that and then directing it to being, oh no, I do have this and everything like that, every time you notice it, and then you're being proactive with your focus, you'll still be able to get it. But again, that's a very difficult route to go around it. I would advise you just letting go of the need for it.
I love the analogies. Like every line we have a new one.
I just pull them out my ass.
New analogy.
So hopefully
this time
they work.
it's a light bulb.
Hopefully they work. Hopefully they make it make sense. Lily says, hey, been dating SP since September, and in December we became official. I manifested it, obviously. Always affirmed, of course, he loves me and that we are in a committed relationship. Okay, well, I'm glad that that's happened. I've been having some old fears and triggers here and there, only human after all. And when we had the relationship talk, SP expressed some concerns of his, our age gap in one and blah, blah, but still said he wants to give us and the relationship a go. A few weeks ago, he came over because he wanted to talk to me again, and he expressed the same concerns and fears, but said it's not a breaking up talk and that he still wants to be with me, but he's just a bit scared of the future, etc. I've been focused on that talk. I've not been focused on that talk at all, because who cares? But what he says, really, none of that matters. I know it's a manifestation of my old thoughts and fears, and that it's old. Today, though, we had yet another talk where he said he isn't sure about us anymore. He says his feelings are up and down all the time, and he is not sure if it's love he is feeling towards me anymore. He didn't break up with me, but yeah, he is not sure at all. I know, again, he is reflecting me, but still so scary to hear it in your face like that. I was completely calm, said, okay, yeah, I understand, blah, blah, blah. He said, again, he likes me so much, and we always say or love each other, not all the time, and that he thinks I'm the most amazing girl. Oh, person. So I don't know why I read that as girl. He cares for me and all of that. I've been working on my self-concept hardcore lately, especially on my not chosen and prioritized. So this must be something super old that shows up in my 3D. Again, I know he is reflecting to me. It's just scary because I shouldn't affirm this, but I feel I've gotten more fears of abandonment lately since my mum passed away in September. So I feel lost. Last year, I can see I've had a little bit of hot and cold thoughts. Hence why SP says his feelings towards me are hot and cold. I don't know where I'm going with this. Could just do with some prep support at the moment. Okay, yeah. So first of all, again, sorry for your loss. Second of all, congratulations for getting him in the first place. And third of all, this is just a circumstance. And I think your association with the words that he's saying is potentially what is holding you back and what keeps creating this. You obviously in that said, who cares what, like, about him saying this and all of that kind of stuff. But clearly to an extent you do, which makes sense. Like you said, you're human and you will have situations where you feel down about someone saying that they're not sure of that how they feel about you and everything. But when you do associate with these kind of things too much and you do allow them to sort of sit on your mind or dictate how you think and feel a little bit, then that's why you often have them repeating. So you say that this could be something super old that happened, which is why this is playing out now, as in super old thoughts. But if you over associate with the fact of what he said the last time, even if you didn't think about it too much, like other than that, but you did really like feel into it, feel it to be true, and kind of let it dwell on your mind, you are on the potential of that recreating, which is quite a lot of the time why people, when they react to something, end up having the same experience again. So where you go from here is letting go of what has been said in the past, all the times that he said, he doesn't know how he feels, he's concerned, letting go of what he said this time about how he's very unsure. Work on that self-concept and work on the thoughts that you're having. You said that you've been kind of having a few hot and cold thoughts since September. Try your best to catch them. flip them to the end result that you do want. Try not to let anything that he said get in the way, and you will experience him in the way that you want to experience him. You can't be denied, assuming that you are placing your awareness in the right place, focusing on all of these different talks that he said along the way. Is obviously not placing your awareness in the right place. So stop yourself whenever you have these thoughts. Ask yourself, how should I be thinking, feeling, and acting? And then direct your focus to there instead. Zach Diam says, hey, big sis, is it true that girls like aggressive men? I don't know why, but some girls want to be my girlfriend and a bit obsessed. By big sis, I'm assuming he's talking to you.
So, is it true that girls like aggressive men? I don't know why, but some girls want to be my girlfriend and are a bit obsessed. I don't think that that's the case. I think aggressive is the wrong word.
I think
for
you mean
definite.
like masculine.
If you mean like assertive and like sort of like dominant isn't really the right word either, but like assertive kind of men, then yeah, like girls like men who know their own self kind of thing and are quite sure of themselves and know, I guess, like what they want and where they're going and stuff like that. But I definitely wouldn't say aggressive, because I think aggressive men are just kind of scary and a bit off-putting and a bit like too much kind of thing. But that is the way that I see aggressive. So it might just be like a miscommunication in the words there, sort of thing, because you might mean aggressive in a different kind of way. But like men who walk around and punch the walls and shit, no. No. If that's what you mean by aggressive, I'd say it's hard pass.
The Monster Energy Kyles of the world.
Yeah, like those, no. But like the sort of, I guess, assertive and like yeah, just kind of like sure and like let's do this sort of like, yeah.
So I'm gonna just point something out here. You have asked a fish how to catch a fish. Never ask a fish. You want to ask the fisherman. So it's better if you have these kind of questions to ask a guy what women actually want, because like I said, you don't ask a fish how to fish for a fish. You ask a fisherman. But yeah, I do agree with what Katie said. A masculine, assertive man is definitely much more appealing. Not aggressive in a sense, like she said, of going around punching walls. But the reason why is women like protection and provisioning. So they need a man who has got ambition so that he can provide at some point in the future for her and her offspring. Just a second. Someone who can protect. So you need to be able to sort of fight and protect, but you do never, ever want to be able to turn that on them. So if you mean aggressive as in kicking the shit out of things for just the fun of it, then no. If you mean aggressive as in, like she says, assertive and being able to stand for what you want, stand up for yourself, stand up for the ones that you're trying to protect, like ambitious, like aggressive for what you want, for example, like if you're like running a business and you're like, no, I'm making this happen regardless of what it takes, that kind of stuff, yeah. But if you've just got anger that you're throwing around, definitely not. Not in the long run anyway. What was your little point?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, like, one of the most important things to like me personally is feeling safe and secure. Aggressive is not either of those things, in the sense of angry, aggressive kind of people. So yeah, I'd say making somebody feel safe and secure, and that could come in the form of being like aggressive, like to like things that threaten them, but they should never feel scared. I think there's a big difference between being aggressive and just throwing a weight around for the sake of it and being able to use aggression when you need it.
Exactly. Murder Lab Art says, how to manifest SP if you are in Friends with Benefits and they started going on dating apps. I don't know why I feel like it's hard. I have been trying to work on self-concept. So in this instance, so how to manifest SP if you're in Friends with Benefits is no different to anything else. Where is your awareness going? Are you seeing every time you meet each other as we are friends with benefits, or are you working on seeing it as we are together? Them going on dating apps and everything, that is again not part of your desired reality. That's part of like something else. So your desired reality would be you two together, committed, loving, passionate, whatever, insert descriptive words. That's where your focus should be. So every time you go around or he comes around to you, Instead of seeing it as, oh, it's another friends with benefits, how can I get him to become my person? See it as he's coming around as my person. He's come around as my boyfriend. He's come around as my romantic partner. We're going to spend some lovely time together. And then when he leaves, I'm going to see him again tomorrow because we're in this loving, passionate, committed relationship. That's how you should be seeing it, because it's a perception-based thing. Like I said, every time that you see it as friends with benefits, you're holding yourself and anchoring yourself to that reality. Nothing is harder than anything else. It's all just your perception. Self-concept is very good for looking past all of this stuff, like the dating apps problem that you are experiencing right now. But again, you can look past that as best, if you can look past that as best you can, and just focus on you two being together and letting everything in the old reality fall away, and only focusing on relationship, love, passion, commitment, and having that be created. That's all that is required. Anything else is just let it fall off.
I was just going to say as well, are you actually enjoying the situation that you're in? Because are you in that situation because you think that being friends with benefits, they will eventually just change their mind and like fall in love with you, kind of thing? Or are you enjoying the situation? Because if it's a situation that you're not really enjoying and you're doing it because you hope that it will help aid you becoming their partner, I think maybe it might be pulling yourself out of it. Because if it's a shitty situation, you don't really want to be in it. And when you continue to just live in a shitty situation, thinking that, like, you know, oh, this is really shit, I wish that they weren't my friends with benefit, and like you're just sitting in the shit sort of thing, it's only going to make it worse and worse and create more and more. So I think if you enjoy the situation and you know you're happy, you need to get to the point where you can say to yourself, we might be friends with benefits, and you know, whatever, I'm happy if it turns into a relationship, I'm happy if it stays like this, kind of thing. Because if you're in a crappy situation, it's just not going to get any better, kind of thing, if you're doing it for the hopes that it will aid what you're trying to get in the end, kind of thing.
Yeah, it goes back to that question I think Carolina asked earlier about, was it Carolina? Yeah, the biggest reason why people struggle is if you need the change to happen. If you're in need for that shift, then you're going to have more of a struggle. So if you become outcome independent, then it'll be a lot easier for you to make those shifts. Juhi, apologies if I said that wrong. Is it wrong to manifest an SP to change who has been rude? Does this mean I'm lowering my standards by doing this? So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're lowering your standards. Could you like walk away and find someone that is the way that you want them to be without needing to change them? Yes, absolutely. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you're lowering your standards. It just means that you're waiting for this person to shift, I suppose. But you can, it's not wrong to change that. Oh, is there more? Oh,
Yeah.
Dylan talks on his channel about not caring about such people, but if everyone is you pushed out, that means I've created that person to be rude, and hence I'm changing it. So I actually do agree to some extent that with what Dylan says in there, I still 100% agree with the idea that you can change anyone, and if you want someone specific, you should 100% go for them. But over my sort of like time of like how I've grown and developed, I do think that if it's like a task, or if it's something that, like, yeah, I suppose I could have it. Like, oh yeah, I suppose I could like really like the idea of him being the way that I want him to be, but I could be with someone else instead, and that would be fine. Then you're best off just going for the one that just feels better. Because if you're wasting your time trying to change someone and you feel like shit in the immediate like period, if you don't absolutely know that they're the person you want regardless, then you might as well just go for someone that you can have that makes you happy immediately. So I do agree with Dylan from that perspective, but that's more of like a personal preference. That's more of like I'm not going to waste my time on this kind of stuff anymore. Because you can work on yourself to sort of benefit everyone as you pushed out without needing to change a specific person, which means the next person you come across will be more in line with what it is that you want. But that's a personal thing as opposed to LOA process overall. But I don't think it's wrong to manifest someone to change. And I also don't think it's lowering your standards, but it might be using unnecessary energy. And in some cases, if they're rude to you and makes you feel quite hurt and, you know, upset, then it could be like wasting your happiness as well. But it's not wrong to make them change. But what you do is entirely up to you. Truth be told says, please help me. I keep dreaming my SP with someone else I don't want them to be with, and it affects my brain in my waking life in being in my preferred result. Please give me advice. It makes me depressed, even though it's a dream. Okay, so immediately from the way that you're messaging there, I can see that you're very like quite anxious and outcome dependent for this change. And the way that you're talking about the other person, you're like, I don't want them to be with, makes me worry that you are scared of losing this person to someone else, which is obviously a self-concept kind of concern. Your dreams have no more power than what you give them. And your waking hours, you can control where your thoughts go. So even though you might have a thought that comes up about something undesired, apologies. Even though you might have a thought that comes up about an undesired situation, you can control where that thought goes in the long run. So my advice to you here would be to, and I'm going to cough again, so I'm going to mute. Apologies. My advice to you in this situation would be to try to let go of the dreams as best you can. They are just dreams. They mean absolutely nothing that you don't allow them to mean. The other thing is to catch yourself when you feel yourself slipping out of that desired state and have the discipline to go, no, this is not my truth, because in my truth, I'm in this relationship with this person. We are in a loving, passionate, committed relationship and everything is amazing. You know?
Yeah.
Oh, you look like shocked. You're like,
Oh, no.
yeah. And in terms of the, it makes me depressed, even though it's a dream, that is kind of giving you, that is showing that you've got way too much attachment to this, this dream. You're giving way too much power to it. You dictate where your thoughts and assumptions go. You dictate what your awareness is placed on. So if you're placing your awareness on the negatives, then they're going to make you depressed. Look past the dream as best you can and have the discipline to say, no, this is not my truth because I'm in this relationship, or because person loves me, or because I'm worth more than whatever these dreams are showing, or because how could they be with someone else when they've got me and I'm amazing, yada, yada, yada. It's all about shifting awareness. And just remember, it's just a dream. A dream is just something that your mind has conjured up. Therefore, you can conjure up new thoughts with that same mind.
I had a really funny dream last night that I was at a school and then I went in the room that they told me not to go in, and it was Kim Kardashian's bedroom. So yeah, I don't assign meaning to dreams at all, because my brain is like, here you go, I have something crazy today, and I'm like, cool.
Stephen Atkins says, what's the best way to start manifesting? Like, I really want the good life, my own home, etc., but I'm constantly faced with debt. Did you say anything else? No. Okay, cool. So the best way to start manifesting is to get an idea of what it is that you want. So you say you want that good life, your own home, etc. Get detailed in each one of those things. I want a really good home living in California, for example. I really want to be financially free or doing a job that allows me to work from home. What does a good life constitute to you? And obviously, I'm assuming being out of debt is part of that. So conjure up what a good life actually looks like for you, then create those scenes and statements that imply you're living it, or stories to tell yourself, so to speak. And then direct your focus back to those whenever you see debt, or whenever you see the old banger car that you don't want instead of the Lamborghini that you do want. Redirect your focus to say, oh no, I'm debt free. Oh no, I am actually driving this amazing car. Oh no, I have my home in California. And you redirect your focus back to that end result. But overall, it's a mindset shift and changing your perception. So if you keep seeing debt and you're like, this must mean that I'm not going to go anywhere, you're going to play victim, not play victim, you're going to be held victim to that circumstance. So when you have your awareness placed on something you don't want, catch yourself, say, no, that's not my truth. And again, flip it to something else and start flipping those thoughts as best you can and start focusing on this new story. Because the best way to start is to simply start changing your thoughts. The best way to know what you should change your thoughts to is to get clear on what it is that you actually want to experience instead. RC says, it really isn't rocket science. People make it more difficult than it is. I do agree, but I think a lot of people, and you say people will ask the same questions over and over, live in the end result constantly. It ain't rocket science, people. So to an extent, I do agree. Like, as in, it is quite a simple process. Think about what it is that you want as though you are already living it. However, a lot of people do find that certain things are more difficult than other things, and they need those little bits of advice on how to move past those obstacles. And that's what these questions, these live streams are here for. Some people, to you and I might not see a specific person manifestation as something particularly difficult, but I might see trying to manifest a job as like, oh, maybe that's a little bit more tricky for me because I maybe not be as experienced. And I find it more difficult for me to like get my head around the idea that experience isn't actually something that is needed, when in the 3D, every job application says you need 2 years of experience, for example. So while I do agree that it is simple in terms of concept, some people just need that extra little bit of advice, or that extra little bit of assurance or reassurance that it can be done. They're not going to waste their time, and that they should stick it out. So it's simple, yes, but do I think that people should stop asking questions? No, not at all. I think people need advice. I think going to coaches, not just LOA coaches, but any kind of coach, if you want to learn something, you'd go to, if you like, it's quite easy for me to sit there and say, yeah, push up more weights than I was last week, or do a proper form, but going to a coach to help me do that and to show me really how to do it effectively is much more effective. Even though in short, yes, it's simple. You just push up metal plates. It's the same sort of thing. Fandom Geek says, I feel like I've overcome SP and basic desires. Like, yeah, I can want and have them, but at this point, everything I want is mental, like happiness, curing depression, etc., etc. But because it's all in the mind, it feels complicated. How would you alleviate this? Again, it's all where you're placing your perception. So, depression is so. If it's clinical, I think there's something different because it's due to chemical releases. I don't have depression, so I can't really speak from that perspective. But a lot of the time, sadness and depression and everything come from sitting in the past, living in the past. It's what once was. It's the things that's making you sad. It's thinking about things as if they're not the way what you want them to be, and it's just that constant perception of things to not be a certain way. Like I said, I don't know clinically depressed because I'm pretty sure that there's different chemicals that get released and therefore different sort of reactions. So I'm not going to speak from that perspective. I'm going to speak about people, and it's going to sound ruder than I mean it to, and I don't mean it to sound rude, but I'm going to talk about people that haven't been tested that just say, I'm depressed. And for those kind of people, I like to refer to it as the big sad because it just sounds funny. But in those kind of instances, when it is just people just having a bad outlook and they're sort of letting that get to them, again, it's all perception. Force yourself to smile. And I'm not perfect at this myself. I definitely have like some bad days and it'll take me quite a while to pull myself out of it. Or if Katie and I argue, believe it or not, you may be surprised to hear this. Katie's actually the one that bounces back from arguments much faster than I do. I just detach. I'm just like, I'm done with everything. And I'll just sit on my like laptop working and stuff. So it's something that I could improve on myself as well. But like,
I pretend to be happier than I am.
Yeah, that's basically what I was going to say. Just force yourself to smile, force yourself to think about things the way that you want them to be. Yes, the illnesses and stuff that you referenced, or the happiness and curing depression is all in your mind. But that, if anything, from a broad statement, makes it easier. If it's all in your mind and all that you need is your mind to change it, then you are literally, it's all down to you. It's literally changing your perception. If it was the idea of like, I don't know, getting a specific person back, that logical side of you that thinks, how can my mind affect this? How is this even going to work? That's obviously going to be in the way. But if it's your mind fighting your mind, you're like, well, all I got to do is just change the way that I'm perceiving things. And then over time, it will work. I'm not going to say you're going to wake up tomorrow and the big sad's going to be gone. But if you start changing the perception you have on things, instead of saying, I have to go to work, say, I get to go to work. Instead of saying, like, is there anything to be happy about? Start writing down. I'm glad I have a roof over my head. I'm glad I have, these live streams to show up to, just as examples. And it's all about shifting the perception that you have. And the way that I would alleviate it is to gratitude journal is one way. And the other way is to try your best to catch yourself when you feel yourself thinking in the way that doesn't benefit the way that you want to be. I'm assuming you might have something that you want to put on this, or have you not got anything?
No, I think to be fair, you've said pretty much all of it, to be fair. Yeah. I think that, I do have, like I was medicated and stuff like that for depression and anxiety and things like that. And my like external circumstances have changed so much now that, I'm actually like doing much better and stuff and no longer medicated and all of that kind of jazz. But I'm really, really, really good at masking, like massively good at masking. And I have recently found out that it's because I created different personalities. So for me, I can actually switch off, not all the time, but I can actually just switch off the sad. Just switch, and yeah, then I feel better and stuff like that. So but yeah, no, I don't really have anything to add to it because I'm actually in a little bit of like not necessarily like a dilemma, but like I've recently found out many new things about myself and my mental health and things like that. And obviously I have recently been in a lot of therapy and stuff. So everything at the moment is quite new to me. So I used to just say to people, oh, but you can just decide to be happy. But actually that might be just a completely different mental illness that I didn't realize. So yeah, don't have anything to add. You carry on.
Okay, thanks. I hope that
I just
helps.
got awkward then, sorry.
Have you got to go in a minute?
I do, in about 10 minutes.
Okay, cool. Carolina says, okay, I got you. I think I just need to stop overthinking it and just keep persisting. I asked a lot of similar questions. Oops, I just realized it's all the same answer. Thank you. It's fine. Answer, like I said, these questions these live streams are for you guys to get the little bits of advice that you need. And You know, absolutely. That's why we do these live streams. So ask as many as you want and as repetitive as they want. If it's the same question over and over, as in like same written, then I'll take you off. But other than that, I don't mind. But I'm glad it was helpful. Dewey says, or Juhai, apologies if I said any of them wrong. Says, I'm working on my self-concept and LOA channels focusing on detachment. It is that I need to stop desiring. Self-concept affirmations make me anxious as my mind keeps telling me that I'll lose my desires if I don't focus on them. Okay, so detachment is not the desire. Detachment is the need. So let's say, for example, here's just like a little bit of a way that I can describe it. It's again another stupid analogy, but hopefully it makes sense. So let's say that you were going home and your partner was supposed to have cooked dinner. If dinner doesn't show up, you don't care because you're just like, cool, I'll just cook it myself, you know. That's wanting it. I want to go home and have that dinner cooked. But not needing it is the element of if it's not there, so what? That's what you should be aiming to be like. You should be like, yes, I want this person or I want like this job or whatever desire it is that people want. But if I don't get it, it is not the end of the world. That is what they mean by letting go of that attachment because too many people will quite often say, and at the beginning of a breakup, yes, I can understand it. But I've had a few clients here and there that has like been months since their breakup and they're still not eating properly. They're still not sleeping properly. They're still like breaking down through constant hours of the day and stuff. And in those kind of instances, it's very clear that there's a severe attachment because they've done studies to prove that the actual reaction that we have to something only lasts something like 21 seconds. After that, it's our mind redirecting ourselves back to those negatives, which makes us feel worse. Think of like any time when you've been listening to sad music and you might cry for a bit, but then afterwards you feel amazing, but then you deliberately listen to sad stuff to make yourself cry some more. That kind of situation. So desiring is I want it. Attached to it is I need it. So going back to the example, desiring could be going home, wanting there to be dinner when you get home. If you don't get it when you get home, do you break down and cry? More than likely not. You probably just go, you know what? I might miss a bit of my evening because I got to cook my own dinner, but so what? I cook dinner. It's nothing. That's how you should be trying to see it. You should be like, yes, I want this person, but if I don't get them, who cares? Now, as for the other part of your question about when you focus on self-concept, you're scared you're going to lose them. That is the exact reason why you should be focusing on self-concept. You should never be scared to remove your focus to something, to work on yourself through fear of losing said thing, because that shows just how little self-love that you have. And in this world, you get what you are, not what you want. If you don't love yourself enough to put some focus on you instead of a person, how can you expect them to want to put some focus on you instead of themselves? So you won't lose your person by putting focus on you. If anything, it will benefit you because this will remove that attachment or at least lower that attachment. So it becomes more of a wanting as opposed to a needing. And then you can attack it from the I have this person, everything's great, everything is the way that I want it. We're in this loving, passionate, committed relationship. And it'll be much easier for them to come because you're no longer getting in the way of your manifestation and no longer saying, well, I need to focus on them to get them. Because if you're literally that sentence itself, what does that sound like? I need to keep my focus on them, otherwise I won't get them. Does that sound like the way that someone would act if they already had them? Probably not. Well, no, definitely not. So even just having that perception is probably what's keeping them away from you. And in a lot of cases, taking some attention off of someone to put it on yourself is quite often where so many of my clients, at least, have had that success where the person comes in because they're no longer getting in their own way. They've released that attachment and now they're working on themselves. And now that they have more love for themselves, as a result, what they are, they get what they are. If they have love for themselves, other people, as a result, must have love for them too. So hopefully that helped, and hopefully that will give you some ideas on what to do going forward. Holly says, help. I've been doing affirmations for my relationship, but I still lost spark and attraction. Want to make this work. Why do you want to make it work if you've lost spark and attraction? Is it attachment? Is it, I've done so much work now, I might as well persist? Because if you've lost spark and attraction, why would you want that relationship? Summerrain says, spiral and cry. Yes, we are all humans. Yeah, I've done it. Well, I don't really cry anymore, but I have done it in the past where I just kind of just fucking melt down. I haven't cried for a long time, actually. SSS Sebastian says, how do you let go of the old story? Letting go of the old story is kind of having like okay, so this is going to sound very contradictory to LOA, and it's one of those things that it's very difficult to talk about contradictions to LOA because people have meltdowns. I like to referred to Stoic philosophies in this kind of outcome, because Stoic philosophies are basically under the assumption of, if you can't control it, who cares? Let go of it. Focus on what you can control. Now, I know people are going to come at me saying, oh, but you can revise and you can this and you can that. Yes, you can. And if you want to do that, you absolutely can. But my way of letting go of old story, or my way of dealing with things, is to implement the Stoic philosophy, because I feel like it works with me as a human much more naturally than to think backwards and try to change something. Even though revision works and I have had success in some cases, I prefer to let the past die and to move forward as best that I can. Obviously, I'm not perfect at it myself, but I try. So when it comes to this kind of situation of how do you let go of the old story, it's done. Just accept that it is done and move forward on what you can control. You're focusing on the old story because you've anchored yourself to it due to some form of perception that you have on it, or due to something that is very significant within that. You can create your new reality. You can create to have whatever it is that you want. So if you're struggling to let go of the breakup, remember that you, going forward, can create a reconciliation. So whenever I sort of have that old story, I say, can I control it? No. What can I control? Where my focus goes in the reality I create going forward. Okay, what does that reality look like? And then it's insert whatever reality it is. So how do you let go of the old story? Try that. Literally, whenever you think about it, go, can I control it? No. What can I control? Thoughts. What thoughts should I be thinking? Reality-based thoughts that I want to experience, and start thinking those. And over time, you'll start to feed yourself this new story, and you'll gradually let go of that old story more and more, and it will become much easier.
Something as well that you can control is your reaction to it.
Yeah.
So yes, something has happened, but you can choose the way that you react to it. At the time, you just have your natural reaction, and that's fine. Like if something horrible happens, your natural reaction might be to scream and cry, because that's what happened there and then. But you, from that point on, can choose exactly how you react to things, and you can choose that it did not affect you. And you can keep telling yourself the same over and over again, that it did not affect you. That yes, it affected you in the moment, but it does not affect your life moving forward. It does not affect you as a person. It does not change your personality. No matter what it was, no matter how traumatic it was, it didn't affect you. It hurt at the time, or it was horrible at the time, but it's not going to change you and your life and your reality moving forward, because you're not going to let it.
Yeah. Carolina says, Katie, were you skeptic to LOA when you learned about it from Matt, or were you all for it and apply it and know more about it?
Very skeptical to begin with. So like when I first found out about LOA was exactly the same time that I found out that he manifested me. So my first sort of initial reaction to it was, well, no. That doesn't work. No way was I manifested. So yeah, I was very skeptic, and then I had this really kind of strange moment where I suddenly realized that I wasn't psychic. And that was really kind of strangely upsetting to realize that actually, no, I'm not psychic. I wasn't predicting the future. I was just making the future. Because quite often I would believe that I had psychic moments where, I'd think about something and it would happen. And it was very strange to flip the idea that I wasn't just picking up on the future, I was actually making the future. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Michael X says, how do we... Oh, shit.
There is lots and lots of comments. I did put in another one to say no more comments.
Yeah, because this has run over a lot.
Yes.
Oh, God, there's loads.
There's loads and loads, and I unfortunately have to go. So if there was any questions for me, Matt will try and answer them.
Yeah, all right. So let's do this. I'm going to try and... I'll answer the rest of these, but then...
Fire.
Yeah, but I do have to head off.
You can turn the comments off, but the only reason I don't do that is in case you ask someone for clarity. But yeah. Anyway, bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, so Michael X says, how do we send questions? Super chat donation. Mine is specifically about 100k. So sending questions, just ask them and I will get around to them when I can. I try to answer every question as soon as when I can get round to in order. So if I haven't got to yours yet, don't think that I'm ignoring you. I just haven't got there yet. If you do want your question answered sooner, then the super chat thing kind of pops up, and I always ask them first because you've taken, your resources of money to ask that question. So obviously I'm then going to give my attention sooner, but I do try to get through every question. However, on streams like today, when it's really running over, there might be a part that I don't get to them all, but we'll see how it goes. But predominantly just ask the question and I'll get around to it. I am says, hey, beautiful souls. Hello, Matt and Katie. Howdy, howdy. How truthful can the statement quote that what you seek is seeking you? Thanks in advance and much love to y'all. So I think it is oh, sorry, my mind went on to one of the comments down below, or my vision. So I think it is true because you get what you are, not what you want. So if you're seeking something, you're stepping into it, and as a result, it's stepping into. Oh shit! I just knocked my laptop, and as a result, it's stepping into you. This is why I think that. Just get shit at me. So yeah, so if you're seeking something, you're stepping into something, you're finding the ways to step into it, and you're trying to find the ways to find it. I'm going to stop knocking my laptop because it's jeering. And you're finding ways to find it, and as a result, it's finding ways to find you. So I do believe it to be true. I think it's one of those things that people need to not worry about. You know, like it's kind of that middle thing where it's like, should you be focused on, oh, my thing is looking for me, or should you be focused on, I've got my thing, if that makes sense. That's my perception of it. But I do think it's a valid explanation. I don't think valid statement. I don't think my explanation was particularly good about it, but I think it's valid. 1 second. Apologies. Phantom Geek is responding to Michael saying, oh, they just take questions, just ask away, they get into it. Ashley Lewis says, have you ever tried the I remember when technique? And if so, do you believe it's helpful? Yes, I actually use the I remember when technique for Katie. So when I was having moments where I was struggling with the old story, I would say to myself, I remember when Katie and I were broken up, but now we're back together and everything's amazing. And I think it worked great. So I definitely recommend the I remember when if you want to try it. Robin Van Leave says, hi there. I have been watching your videos for a while. You may have answered this already. How long have you and your partner been apart at the time of manifesting her? So we were, sorry, the floorboard's really creaky. So we were apart. We weren't apart for like particularly long. The reason why why I say that, the reason why that's not really important, the time that we were apart, is because my manifestation was never for reconciliation. My manifestation was for us to be together in a loving, happy, committed relationship. So the reason why that is important is because this proves that the bridge of incidents will play out in the way that is beneficial to you to get you to where you want. So many people think that the thing they should be aiming for is reconciliation, when in fact, what you should be aiming for is being together and being happy and loving. While we weren't apart for particularly long, while we weren't apart for particularly long, the actual getting to the point of our relationship being the way that I wanted it to be actually took a fair few months, because from point of being broken up with to point of getting us to there, that whole time span, which was my entire bridge of incidents, that was a fair few months. So even though it wasn't long that we were broken up for, that was not my focus. Getting her back or getting your person back should never be your focus. Being in a loving, amazing, committed relationship, that should be your focus. And as a result, that's where I kind of draw the line for what my manifestation actually was. So I know many people look at it like, oh, he got his ex back. How long did it take? Maybe I can get mine back in the same time. I never refer to my manifestation as getting my ex back and that being the only manifestation. I refer to it as being in that loving, passionate, committed relationship, because that was the entirety. So because of that, it took us a fair few months to get to where I wanted to be. But just take comfort in knowing that by going to my end result, I still got the reconciliation without focusing on Katie and I are back together, if that makes sense. I only used that statement phrasing when I did the year I remember when, because it implies it was wrong before, but now it's good. Other than that, I would just say that I'm in a loving, passionate, committed relationship. H says, revision pro tip, script like a motherfucker. Yeah, scripting I think is probably the best way for revision. I think it's a lot easier to stay like consistent with it when you got the pen writing out the new story, as opposed to thinking or visualizing the new story. Michael X said, how would manifest 100K specifically using affirmations? I say mine, but I feel nothing. So if I was to be trying to manifest 100K, what I would say is something like, I'm so grateful to have £100,000 coming to me. And that would be like my main affirmation. And then I would do subcategories for it. So things like, now that I've received £100,000, I can pay off all my debts. Now that I've received £100,000, I can do XYZ thing. And then I would just kind of make up things that I could do with this money. I tried to make them exciting and fun so that when I am saying them, I can kind of get on board and excited about the opportunities and the possibilities with this money. As for you say you feel nothing, maybe try to get yourself into a bit of a meditative state first, or into like a neutral headspace, or even do them after you've done something really fun that makes you feel good and then try them, and maybe try to see if that better mood helps inflate the feeling. or say them with sheer conviction, as if like you are really like screaming from the top of, obviously I'm not saying you have to scream, but like as if you are really screaming at the top of your lungs, like, I've made this money, and stay committed to that. That might help you feel into it as if it was true. Fandom Geek says, Matt asked us to stop here. Yeah, I know, but people always ask, and you know me, I can't just let them go. People are here for help, and I must help. H says, Matt, something good is going to come soon. I'll email you almost in tears. Oh, I'm really excited to hear that. Victory 3002 Play says, what do you think about crystals, tarot, witchcraft, etc.? Do you think it's connected with manifestation or communication with higher self? I do think it's connected. I think that they are all just, I think tarot is picking up on your current energies. And I think like witchcraft spells, all that kind of stuff is all just sort of other forms of techniques, just like affirming and stuff like that. Like if I was to sort of make a spell under the assumption that this is going to get me my person, then it's a technique to get me my person. So I think that they are connected. Master Uguay says, I have a very important question. When I visualize myself as a better or greater self, where she will feel again for me, somewhere the me I'm visualizing is not with her. What do you think about that? I have a very important question. When I visualize myself as a better or greater self, where she will fall again for me, somewhere the me I'm visualizing is not with her. What do you think about that? Apologies, I don't fully understand the question. Somewhere the me I'm visualizing is not with her. What do you think about that? If you're saying you're visualizing yourself becoming a better version and as a result she'll come to you, I think if that's correct, I might be wrong on that, but if that's what you mean, I would advise stepping into that better version who does have her, as opposed to who will get her to fall for you again, because what you've said there implies that she isn't with you right now, and that will just obviously keep getting you more of that. So I would advise you visualizing yourself to be who you want to be, but who does have this person instead of who will get her again. Victory 302 Play says, I don't know what to ask though. I think I've changed my mind for the better. What do you think about subliminals? Because I put some subs from Electrosol, which I think made me happier and more self-belief. I think subliminals are amazing. I actually do have a promo code for a subliminal app that I personally use, which is in the description of my videos. They actually have sent me the Android update, so I need to do a video about it. I'm going to do a video explaining everything about subliminals that I believe in and all that lot, as well as the promotion. So if you want a subliminal app that's incredible that I personally use for 15% cheaper if you're Apple at the moment, because I need to update the Android stuff on my descriptions and everything, then check the link in the description and it will take you to it. But I think subliminals are great. I think that they genuinely do work. Robin Van Lee says, also, what was Katie's experience in that time, if she can remember? So she's obviously not here right now, but I can ask her for her because we've spoken about this. So Katie, during the period where we were broken up, she had quite a lot of conflicting thoughts. She was like, oh no, I'm sticking to my guns. And then she would have thoughts about, like maybe we can make it work, maybe blah, blah, blah. And for the time that we were separated, she was kind of back and forth and quite down about it all, really wanted to make it work, but then really wanted to stick to her guns and everything. And then on the day when she finally committed and said, actually, no, I'm going to speak to him and reconcile, she said that she had felt a severe pull and basically nothing could stop her. And when I said that we were going to talk about it, instead of just going, yes, I'll get back with you straight away, she said that she didn't even expect there to be any kind of problem. So when I said that we can talk instead of like we are getting back together, she was quite taken back and shocked, because in her mind she had been convinced that we were back together, which was obviously would have come from my thoughts and assumptions and everything that I was creating to say we are back together. She probably would have explained that better, but hopefully that helps as a third party explanation. Satyam says, yes, dominant, and I'm a bit aggressive and assertive. I would advise in your kind of situation, maybe drop the aggression, unless it's like a protective aggression, maybe. But other than that, assertiveness and all that lot is good, but you don't ever want to make a female feel unsafe around you. That's literally, a female likes a man. I mean, think about it. And I know I'm not, no negative comments based on what I'm about to say, because I don't want to hear it. But think about, quite often women do want men that are taller. Quite often they want men that are more muscular, like muscularly aesthetic. The reason for this is it often shows strength and provisioning. So being able to protect. So a female would prefer a man that can protect her and not use that aggressiveness against her. So just be careful where you're directing that aggressive side of yourself toward. JRC says, I made it late, but I'm here. Hey, JRC, glad to have you here. Lily says, thank you, with 2 hearts. Yes, obviously, yes, I obviously care on some level, but then I get annoyed at myself because I know these are not his thoughts really, but were originally mine. And yes, I really need to learn how to redirect my mind when I start to think about unfavorable things. It's a learning curve. Manifestation is a mindset like marathon as opposed to a sprint. So just try to stop yourself when you notice yourself, and it will become easier over time. Emma says, I feel like I always give negative meaning or assume the worst. Like for X, if SP doesn't text me in the morning, for example, if SP doesn't text me in the morning, I assume something's wrong. He's losing interest. How do I stop this? Stopping, you can't direct where your thoughts come from. A lot of the time, obviously, your thoughts will just come as like natural thoughts until you've built up that new story in your subconscious mind. So trying to stop them from happening is not really what your focus should be. You should be focusing on redirecting them when they come. So if you have negative thoughts, stop yourself and remind yourself, no, that's not the case. He'll text me when he can. No, that's not the case. He's head over heels for me. So why would I be worried? Why would I care if he doesn't text me? I've got my own stuff going on. Those kind of things. Because until you've built up that new story in your subconscious mind, your thoughts are naturally going to come up of the negative, because that's where your story currently is. You can't control that, but what you can control is where you direct them once they've come up. So stop worrying about, oh no, they've come up, and start worrying about how you let them end. Free as a butterfly says, are affirmations and scripting just a technique to get us into the wish fulfilled? Yes. How do we create the feeling of the wish fulfilled? How do we get in the feeling of having RSP when there is no contact? Because you're feeling into this new desired reality. In this instance, you're sort of saying, how can I feel as though I'm with him if we're in no contact? Which means you're thinking about your circumstances as they are now to be an obstacle for you. If you want to experience that desired reality and feel the feeling of it, drop all limitations based on your current 3D and step into what you would feel and experience and think and all that lot in your desired reality, and feel into that. This is why a lot of the times people recommend you do it during a meditation or just before you fall asleep, because your conscious mind, the mind of like what you've just said there is worrying about the no contact, is less active. You go into an alpha brainwave state, and therefore it's a lot easier for you to think thoughts without having your conscious mind trying to solve the problems. So if you want to feel it more, drop all limitations of your current reality and only dwell in what is in your end result. And if it's like visualizations or affirmations or something, you can do it just before you've gone to sleep or in a meditative state. And a lot of the time it will help you feel into it without having to make it happen. Without having to worry about it not happening. Speedy Wong says, should I persist we are together, but when I said back together that it will be like we broke up, or just persist we are together, we never broke up? So I would advise to persist as if you are just together and the breakup never existed. So I'm in the most loving, passionate, committed relationship with the person, because this is putting your focus on what you do want and not the lack of what you don't want. Jordan Strang says, hey, you two, always glad to see you on stream. Hope you're both well. Thank you very much, Jordan, for showing up today. And yeah, we're both well. Hopefully you are too. And apologies, I'm reading this once Katie's gone, but she would have obviously said hi too. Sarah says, my SP got engaged to 3P and it's hard battling the 3D to 4D mentally. My parents keep saying I'm 30 and it's time to look for a husband. And it's annoying because they want me to go out with people I'm not into. So obviously, I don't know your circumstance, as in like your situation. I would just say to keep doing what it is that you want to do. You don't have to battle it. You just have to sit with it until it passes and stop caring about what you're seeing in your 3D. Literally, you can even say that to yourself. Why would I care that this has happened? And then because in my reality, XYZ, and then change your thoughts. In instances like this, I would advise maybe separating yourself from the 3D as best you can, as in like if there's things that you can do to stop yourself from seeing, for example, they're engaged, do those things, because if you're battling the 3D, the more that you remove the 3D that you don't want to see, the easier it'll be for you to dwell in your end result. As for your parents, I don't know your situation, like I said, but if you're 30 years old, I'm assuming you can just do what you want and just ignore what they say. Don't know, because obviously I'm not you, but that's my situation at least. I'm just going to go off of that. You are your own person. You do what it is that you want to do. 1 second. Carolina Akokite. Apologies if I said that wrong. I think I've been calling you Carolina this whole time. I don't know why I just attempted your last name then, because I've been calling you Carolina the entire thing, ignoring your last name. Apologies. Says, in regards to Dewey's question, I think you're getting better in your self-concept. If you're desiring to want to change from your SP to be nicer, you're no longer wanting to accept the bad behavior. You're both leveling up and becoming the best versions of yourself, in my opinion. That's a good way of seeing it as well, actually. I didn't even consider that. So thank you, Carolina, for putting your input there. Summer Rain says, is there anything that can't be manifested besides dead people? Lol. I hear people manifesting for years get nowhere. Okay, so I think that anything that doesn't abide by the laws of physics. So, for example, I cannot jump to the moon. Therefore, I will never be able to manifest it, because the gravity on this planet, based in accordance to the amount of power I can generate from, my calves and thighs and hamstrings and everything, they literally get to a point where I physically cannot jump higher than a certain point, for example. So I'll never be able to jump to the moon, and therefore I'll never be able to manifest that. We are, as biological humans, we as humans biologically cannot regrow limbs until they start splicing our DNA with creatures that can. We cannot manifest growing a limb. You can manifest walking again. Let's say you've got no legs, you can manifest walking again, and that might come in the form of like prosthetics legs and such. Um, but you will never be able to manifest regrowing a limb because that is not within our biology. Until the biology changes, we have to abide by that basically. And by biology changes, I mean DNA splicing. But how effective that will be in our age, I would see that it's probably quite unlikely. So if it doesn't abide by the laws of physics, I would say that it can't be done. And by abide by the laws of physics, I mean quite literally. I know many people probably go, well, how does mind control, not mind control, how does like affirming getting your desired reality, how does that abide by the laws of physics? Well, science has already proved that everything is linked. We have within us atoms that were in stars that existed billions of years ago, for example. So that explains that enough without me going into too much detail, but our biology does not account for us jumping to the moon, therefore we cannot be done. And as you say, people have been manifesting for years but get nowhere. So this is obviously a very big generalization, and I don't really know how people are going to take it. But I think a lot of the time, the people that have been manifesting something for years and having that sheer attachment for that long, to be manifesting for that long, I think in a lot of cases that will probably show why. I think as humans we are quite dedicated to grow and get over things. I think this is why the honeymoon period is a thing. I think this is why a lot of relationships don't get past 2 years, because I think as humans, biologically, this is sort of my opinion. Biologically, we are sort of designed to meet, procreate, move on, and just continue the cycle, sort of thing. Um, because just the way that our relationships work, you have the honeymoon phase, and that's usually where everything is amazing. You can't see fault in this person, and then often relationships don't last past 2 years, and if they do, there's quite often someone ends up going to another person. It's very rare that, especially in this day and age, that marriages or anything like that last particularly long. And that's why I genuinely think as humans, we don't have much capacity to stay genuinely interested in something for a very long time. So if someone has been manifesting a specific thing for years, they have an attachment to that thing. And if you've got an attachment to it, as obviously we've discussed, um, therefore you're going to have more trouble manifesting it. And I think as humans, if we're just going to go based on what I just said, I think we have to choose to love someone when it's been an extended period of time. I think that people fall out of love and they have to choose, and a lot of it is comfortability. I think that if a lot of people had the option, would you leave your person and no one get hurt, and you can find someone else? I think that a lot of people would take that option, because I think as humans we do like change. Think of trends, think of uh how different we are since the 60s, but think of the 60s compared to the 70s, think of the 70s compared to the 80s, compared to the 90s, compared to 2000s, compared to now. Humans are constantly changing, and I don't think we have the capability to stick to one thing for too long. um and that's why I think that the people that have been manifesting for years aren't getting their desire, because they have quite literally some problem that's causing an attachment, if that makes sense. Because being in lack of something for that long and still having the dedication to pursue it, I think is coming from a severe attachment. Now, this is obviously a generalization and not for everyone, but I think that's why it's happening. Because if you're in need that much, you're then stepping into that place of, well, I don't have it, which is why I'm in such need of it, if that makes sense. Emma said, worried SP is not receiving my thoughts. Stop saying that, because that's obviously going to play out for you. Been intending for him to bring up relationship talk and he doesn't, and I see no signs that he wants this. I don't think he'll bring up relationship unless I do. Well, that whole thing basically dictates why it's not happening for you. Why are you trying to bring up relationship talk and not just being in the relationship? If you're just focusing on the end result of being in relationship, you wouldn't be focused on the talk, you'd be focused on the relationship, and you would let things play out in the way they do. If you think that you need to make the move to talk about the relationship, that's what's going to play out for you. So that whole thing is basically an explanation as to why you're not getting what it is that you want. Let go of the current moment, not the current moment, sorry. Let go of the current circumstances of him not bringing it up and you feeling like you have to. And again, just dwell in the end result of it happening, and only let your thoughts and awareness lie on that of you two being together. Nanu says, I think that subconscious is powerful enough to even chemical imbalances in your head. to even chemical. I saw a girl that cured schizophrenia with LOA. It is all about mindset in the end of the day. I do agree. I do think that even severe depression and actually diagnosed depression can be cured by it. The only reason why I didn't want to talk about it because I don't know how your mind is affected by such thing. So for me to sort of sit there and say, oh, just put a smile on and then try to perceive the world differently, I don't know if clinical depression will actually have an impact on that because I don't have it myself. So I don't want to talk and spout shit that doesn't actually make sense or that isn't true because I haven't experienced it. So while I do agree that it can be cured by LOA, I don't know if the process or the way that people have to go about it is any different because I don't know if me simply saying just flipping the thoughts is actually possible for them because of the clinical depression. That's why I didn't want to talk about it. But I do agree that yes, it is definitely curable by LOA. But how it's curable, I don't know the process. That's why I didn't want to talk about it. Because I don't talk about stuff that I don't know about. Like people will come here saying, can I change my skin color? And I'll outright say, I don't know. I've not had a client do that. I've never tried it myself. Other people have said that they can, maybe go to them because I only talk about stuff that I have experience in or that I've helped clients get experience in because I don't want to lie to you, I'm not here to, spout bullshit and get fucking millions of views and stuff. That's why I don't trend chase. That's why I don't do as many specific person videos as probably a lot of other channels do because I'm here to help everyone, not just get my channel bigger, if that makes sense. Summer Rain says, Katie, why don't you make a second channel like Matt has for men, but for women? Sorry. She's not. I will, if I remember, because my memory's terrible. I need to stop saying that. If I remember, then I will ask her to answer that, and I will probably, I don't know, put it in a comment or put it on a community post or something. But I think Katie likes being in these live streams because she can sort of talk to people that are familiar with us and like us on a bit more of a personal basis as well. I think she's a bit nervous about being in actual videos of our own because she's like, well, what if people that don't like us or know us see it and then they say something mean? So I think that may be why she hasn't done her own channel for it yet. Michael X says, about the 100K question. Wow, I never thought about that. Thank you. You're very welcome. Glad to have helped. Fandom Geek says, this is where I head out, but you won't see this until the end. Lol, bye. Well, Fandom Geek, thank you very much for showing up in the first place, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Master Uguay says, by the way, I just bought a Game of Life, the book. Oh, nice. And it's really amazing. Thank you so much for your help and guidance. It means a lot. I wish and pray the best for you. I'm glad you bought that book. I think it's a really good book. It was one that definitely made a massive difference for me. And thank you for the kind words. I wish all the best for you too. Charlie Gist says, how real is manifesting an ex? Have you done it? And how effective has it been for you? Yes, I have done it. My ex was in the live stream earlier. I don't know when you joined, but my specific person is my current person. We broke up and I manifested her back. And now that's kind of what this channel has to offer. I don't know if there are other channels that do it as well, but I literally get my manifestation involved in these things to kind of talk to you guys and give you some outlet. I know that there are other channels that manifested their person back, but I don't see as many of them actually bringing their person into the videos. So that's kind of where I suppose I would be unique to the market, so to speak. But yes, it's been very effective for me. I've manifested my specific person back. I've actually manifested quite a few people. Not necessarily as in like ex-backs, but I've manifested a few people sort of like popping up like old friends and stuff like that. So they're not specifically what you're asking because you're asking ex, but I have my ex who was in the live stream earlier, and I have manifested other people. So I suppose it has been very effective for me. Top FJ says, I keep having the same negative thoughts over and over again because I was trying to push them away. What should I do? Sit with the thoughts and let them pass instead of trying to force them away. Because when you're forcing something away, you're giving yourself something to be forced away. So if you sit with them and give them absolutely no power, they'll have no power over you. And as a result, they won't reflect. So that's what I would recommend. Jar says, can you suggest some affirmations for letting go of neediness and negative attachments with people, along with some self-concept affirmations? So for self-concept, I like to detail it towards something. So I'm just going to use specific person for this and say, I'm more than worthy of being with my specific person. I accept the best and only the best. And as a result, specific person provides me the best and only the best. Every day in every way, my life gets better and better. The things I want are so easy for me to obtain and keep. Those are just a couple of examples. As for your letting go of neediness, regardless of the outcome, I know I'll be okay. I can be, do, and have anything I want, and I'm okay if I don't manage that. Just these are just kind of off the top of my head, but what else could I do for neediness? It is so easy and effortless for me to get the things I want, and therefore I do not have to worry about them coming to me. Just things like that, just things that imply that it's all It's easy for you to do, and you haven't got to worry, basically. Murder Lab Art says how to release attachment. So a couple of ways you could do it. One of the ways that I think is very important is to build up your self-concept. When you're very attached to someone, quite often it's because they exude something that you feel like you are are not enough to obtain, and that's why people can become quite attached. So I would recommend building up self-concepts. You can get to a point where you're kind of like, well, why would I be so attached to this person? Of course I can have them. Of course they're going to love me. Look at like how I am. Of course they're going to want this. Another way to do it is to simply outright state, I might never get this. Now, I know that sounds ridiculous, but the reason why people become so attached is because they're in need of this outcome, and they are almost at a point where they don't want to consider the opposite, where they might not get it. Now, LOA makes it so that if you are dedicated to something, if you're disciplined, you will still get that result. But that is mostly useful when you are detached from it, when you can sit back and let it happen, because like I said earlier in the thing, you have this power source. If you keep getting in the way, you're never going to get that switch flipped and turning on the light. So if you sit back and let it happen, it'll happen. Where was I going with that? Oh shit, I've kind of just gone blank. One sec. So yeah, so if you just simply accept that you may never get it, and that you'll be fine without it, this will release that attachment, because you are now no longer in need of it to happen, because you know that even without it, you will be fine. Now, how do I know this works? The day before Katie finally called me, I said to myself, if I never see her again, fine. If I get her back, that's no, I said, if I get her, great. If I never see her again, that's fine. And I released all attachment by saying that it doesn't actually matter if I don't get this. Because unfortunately, what happens when you learn that you can consciously create is many people go, I can create. That must mean that I can get this person back, and I will never consider anything else of the opposing. And therefore, they become so invested in I can get this, that they become severely attached. By simply just accepting the possibility that you can get something, that you might not get something, you are releasing that attachment. Another really goofy example of this, what I had the other day, where I actually applied this myself. I was playing Dragon Ball Fighters, which is basically like Mortal Kombat for Dragon Ball. And this guy was absolutely kicking the shit out of me. Like, he was absolutely banging me. And we did 2 sets against each other, and I lost all games. Like, he absolutely annihilated me. On that last game, I could feel myself being like, I need to win. I just need to win. And I could feel myself getting attached to the outcome of winning. So I literally said to myself, he is better than me, so I might not actually win. The main thing is I'm having fun. And I actually, and this is no word of a lie, and I know most of you think this is a stupid example, but it's just where this is proof that like letting go of attachment can work. I did win that final set. I won the next 2 games and won the set, because I had become no longer in need of winning. I no longer needed my inputs to be perfect. I no longer needed him to fuck up all of his inputs for me to win. I just became relaxed. So what if I lose? I'm having fun. And I won the next 2 games because I released that need. So this is, I literally do quite literally say to myself, if I never get it, so what? And I find that that releases all of that need for it and allows that sort of flow of like infinite power to just happen. So that's kind of how I'd recommend it. Free as a Butterfly says, thank you. Does it mean I'm doing something wrong if it's been a while and no movement? I think positive, but try to live in the end of a happy, loving marriage. I go about my day thinking less of SP. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing anything wrong if it's been a while. Obviously, I would advise you look deeper into your own process and think, am I actually living in the end as much as I think I am, and such things. But it doesn't necessarily mean anything wrong. But what I would recommend is that you don't focus on the potential of it meaning that you're doing anything wrong, because where your focus goes, energy flows. So if you're focusing on the maybe I'm doing something wrong, you'll be given more things to prove to yourself that maybe you're doing something wrong. So yeah, sit back, have a look. Am I actually in the state as much as I think I am? Or am I, wondering and looking for it more than I think I am? And is there a way that I can remove myself from thinking maybe I'm doing something wrong and just focus on, nope, I'm doing everything right and it's going to come? And that's kind of how you should deal with it. Charlie just says, awesome, thanks, you're welcome. And then you also say, did you go hard, no contact? Were you blocked? I was not blocked, but I did go hard, no contact. From the second I walked out of this door until I called her back after missing the missed call the day we reconciled, I did not message, I did not check social media, didn't speak to her, didn't speak to her friends, other than telling my friend, look, this has happened. Do you mind if I stay with you for a couple of nights? I just want to, have someone to chat to and just have a good time to take my mind off it. Other than that, I didn't even speak about the breakup. I literally only focused on everything's good, we're together, and all of the stuff that I mentioned earlier. I went hard no contact until I called her back after missing her call. And it was only because I missed her call. I would not have called her otherwise. Dan Clement says, thanks, man. Your talks about feeling relaxed and releasing attachment has clicked right now. I am very glad to hear it. I'm glad all the talking has helped. So thank you very much, everyone, for showing. Oh, Eva says, hi, if you're trying to manifest a specific person, do you recommend not talking to other people about it? Like if someone asks if you're dating, etc., what would you say? I would recommend you talk about it as little as you can. Keep stuff to yourself just because I think that it creates less complication. If someone was to ask me that, I would just say that I'm what would I say? If someone asks if you're dating, if someone asks if you and your specific person are dating, what I would recommend is just saying things are going well. Just literally leaving it at that. If you're saying are you dating as in like people overall, you could just say yes if you want. And if they say who, just say, secret. Just as an example. Master Uguay says, how do I deal with people who keep telling me to move on and keep telling me she doesn't want you? I'm so sorry. It's my last question. uh, you trust in yourself more than in them. So those like words, you're welcome, Eva. Those words are going to suck. I get that. They are 100% going to suck, but they only have as much power as you allow them to have. So if you are feeding into them and thinking like, oh God, I'm going to, this must be true. Or, oh God, like it's getting irritating. People saying that I'm going to move, I need to move on. And what if they're right? And yada, yada, yada. You're feeding into that story. So instead, when people say these things, literally say, thank you for your input, but I'm fine. Well, thank you for your input, but I'm doing what's best for me. And just leave it at that because you are the operant power of your reality. And even if you weren't the operant power, as in LOA didn't work, you are still in control of your life. You are the only person living your life. And as a result, you should be the only person that actually, you should be the only person whose opinion you are actually taking into consideration. Jar says, I manifested contact from my specific person after months of no contact. He just called me once and everything is silent again. Why is he doing this? I'm assuming you put a lot of focus on that call and were probably hoping that it would happen again and worried when it didn't happen again. Obviously, there's not a lot to go on based on that. But when you say, why is he doing this again? That shows me that your awareness is being placed on the fact that he's not calling you. And as a result, that is playing out. Master Uwe says, thanks again. Have a great one, mate. You too. Thank you very much for showing up. Yeah, so hopefully everyone, that was a good stream for you all. Thank you all for showing up and for, spending your time being here. If you could all like this stream, like once it goes live, just so that more people can see it. Dylan O'Brien says, how do I manifest an ex that said they hate me? Get clear on what it is that you want. Obviously, I'm assuming the relationship. Create season statements that imply that you have this person in your life in a romantic way, and redirect your focus back to that. If you focus on the fact they said they hate you, then you're going to constantly be victim to that circumstance. So if you want something different, place your awareness and focus on something different, which is obviously the season statements that we just implied to dictate that you are in this relationship. So thank you very much, everyone, for showing up today. I really hope you have a good rest of your Sunday, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.